Good morning all. Welcome to this seminar of food, gastronomy and well-being in Kuopio. Welcome to you all on site in Kuopio and welcome to you all who are following us via the live stream. My name is Jonna Smedberg and I have the pleasure of hosting this seminar together with my colleagues here in Kuopio from Rural Women's Advisory Organization, ProAgria Eastern Finland and Savonia University. Without further ado, I will welcome our first speakers, Mrs. Ilona Sares from ProAgria Eastern Finland, also an ICAT expert, and Mr. Antti Iire from Savonia University, also an ICAT expert. Welcome Ilona, welcome Antti.
Good morning, dear friends. It is heartwarming to be here at this historical moment of the opening of ICAT's international seminar in my hometown, Kuopio, Finland. This week is very important to us, for we have been working already many years together with our stakeholders to create with them a beautiful program and content for the ERG Jubilee. The main theme in this is foraging, for we live close to the nature here and have wonderful possibilities to offer services connected to fishing, mushroom and berry picking, or luxurious moments connected to nature, good food, sauna and well-being. The opening ceremony of European Region of Gastronomy Kuopio Region 2020 to 2021 will be held later today at beautiful site next to the lake at Kuopion Saana. We hope you will join us digitally and share these important moments with us. And later, when it is possible, we welcome you to explore our wonderful gastronomic offering.
I've got mine.
Okay.
Hello everyone. My name is Antti Iire and I work as a research and development manager in Savonia University of Applied Sciences here in Kuopio, Finland. My university is one of the 3 founding partners of the Region of Gastronomy program here in Kuopio region, together with the ProAgria Eastern Finland and City of Kuopio. This seminar is part of this program. Because of the exceptional circumstances we are all facing this year, our international speakers and attendees are mainly attending this seminar remotely from their own home countries. I'm sure we can make this seminar working very well also in this way. Our Finnish participants are mainly present, some of them are also remotely. Some of the speakers have recorded their presentation on video beforehand. Our seminar today is about food, gastronomy and well-being. Experts are going to share their insight on many gastronomy-related topics, starting from food trends and eating habits, and ending to arts, wellness, and also sexy human security-related topics. It is my great joy to wish all the speakers and attendees welcome to this seminar. I now declare this seminar opened. Please enjoy the seminar.
Thank you very much, Ilona and Antti. I have the pleasure of welcoming our next speaker, Mrs. Mari Niva, a professor at the University of Helsinki. She will be joining us via live stream, and she will be talking to us about sustainable eating and food consumption now and in the future. Welcome, Professor Mari Niva.
Mari, can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Good
from
morning.
Morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I can hear you from the. Can you hear me now? Oh, hold on.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hold on.
Can you hear Mari?
Yes. Good.
You can start your lecture now.
I think I have. Good. Thank you. But I think I'll put the YouTube off.
You can share your screen now.
Yes. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good. Very good. Just go to the start. Yes, sorry, there was a bit of a mess to start, but now everything should be okay. Yes, very good morning to everyone. I'm very happy to join this seminar this morning. It would have been very nice to be in Kuopio to join you all, but it's not possible at these circumstances. So I'm happy that this connection works. I work as a professor of food culture at the University of Helsinki at the moment, and my topic is sustainable eating and food consumption now and in the future. Now, before I start with the topics, I'd like to present what I'm going to talk about. First, I'm going to present you the context of sustainable eating. I'm saying a few words about culinary cultures, societal developments that explain changes in food consumption. Then I'm going to move on to sustainability targets and environmental impacts of food consumption. And then I'll say a few words about particular meat and other animal protein eating and prospects for changes in that respect. And then finally discuss how we can promote more sustainable food consumption patterns. Yes, let's go to food cultures and their changes. When we think about food consumption, I think it's important to remember that food consumption takes shape within larger and wider food cultures. And when we think about food cultures, it's quite evident that it's quite a complex thing. They include not only the foods and the dishes that we eat, but also the ways that we acquire food and store and cook food. It includes where we eat and when we eat and with whom. The sociability aspect is very important to food cultures, and also the many different kinds of meanings and norms, routines, symbols, contexts, rituals, practices that relate to food and eating. We should also remember that there are a multitude of various actors in the food system that take part in shaping food cultures. So it's not only us as consumers and eaters who play a role, but also the agriculture producers, food manufacturing, retail trade, restaurants, etc. And of course, the available resources that we have, for instance, relating to economy, geography, climate, education, etc., they have a large impact on food cultures. Now, when we think about what is sustainable food consumption, that takes place in sustainable food cultures or culinary cultures. And of course, sustainable food cultures, they include all the issues that I mentioned before, the what and where and when and with whom. we eat and the meanings and norms, etc. But more importantly, sustainable food cultures include ecological, economic, social, and cultural aspects. And here again, it is not only the individual eaters or consumers that shape the sustainability of our food culture. All the actors in the food system and the food chain have a role to play here. Now, if we think about the changes that we've seen in eating during the past decades and the ongoing changes, we can easily see that the ways that we eat today are very different from before due to many kinds of reasons. First of all, we have rising standards of living. The Finnish society has urbanized very rapidly. The work life that we have today is very different from what it was before. The age structures are changes and the number of single households is increasing while the size of families is diminishing. And all this makes an effect on eating. At the same time, if we go to the right-hand part of the picture, we've seen an increasing scientific understanding of the links between food and health and also food and the environment, and there have been rapid technological developments during the past decades in both agriculture and food manufacturing. And the whole food system has globalized and the markets have globalized, so there's an increasing variety of foods available for us today. And if we move on to consumer lifestyles and identities, we have seen that there's been an individualization and also a diversification of consumption patterns and lifestyles. And also a politicization of food. For many of us, food is part of identity and it is also a form of taking a stand in the world. So it is within all this complex context that we face the sustainability challenges of today, which relate, of course, to ecological sustainability, which is at the core of sustainability debates, particularly climate change, but also biodiversity, environmental degradation in both land and marine environment, etc. But we also have serious social justice issues and animal welfare and animal rights issues that we have to deal with. And we have to balance all this with cultural sustainability and think about what it is that we value culturally and think how that is in relation to other dimensions of sustainability. Also economic sustainability. We have to take care of the economic viability of the whole food system. So these are huge challenges that we face today in terms of food consumption. Now, if we now move on to what kind of sustainability targets in terms of food we've seen and what environmental impacts food has. These are the well-known Sustainable Development Goals published by the United Nations some 5 years ago. There are 17 targets, and it's quite interesting to see that if we think about food, it is easy to see that food is actually related to almost all of these targets in one way or another. It's related to zero hunger, good health and well-being, gender equality, clean water, responsible consumption and production, sustainable cities, climate action, life below water and on land, etc. So food is in many ways present in these goals. Now, the United Nations has also published specific texts relating to all these targets. And for instance, the description of responsible consumption and production includes food-related issues. It is noted that the food sector accounts for around 30% of the world's total energy consumption and more than 20% of total greenhouse gas emissions, which is of course a lot. They also note that 1/3 of all food that is produced ends up in food waste. And the target is that by 2030, in 10 years' time, the global food waste per capita should be half of that in 2015. And it's also stressed that we should ensure that people have the relevant information and awareness about sustainable development, and that we should develop lifestyles that are in harmony with nature. Also, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has noted that livestock supply chain account for around 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions that are caused by human action, and that cattle production is responsible for about 2/3 of that, meaning around 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions, which is of course a lot. They note that we should target the demand for meat and other livestock products, and that dietary shifts could contribute to around 1/5 of the mitigation needed to hold warming below 2 degrees Celsius. So these are large figures. Now here we can see why it is so important to pay attention particularly to animal products. If you look at the right-hand side of the picture, you can see that particularly sheep, beef, milk and milk products are important in carbon emissions, but also poultry and eggs are significant. And on the left-hand side of the picture, you can see the table which shows that these same products also have quite large water footprints, and they need a lot of fossil fuel in their production, more so than most vegetable crops. So this is why animal produce is so important. The Finnish Environment Institute, Syke, published just last week a policy brief report about sustainable eating. And for instance, they published this picture on the left-hand side of the picture, showing that animal husbandry causes nearly 90% of the greenhouse gas emissions of agriculture, which is of course a large share. And the crops account for 13%. And on the right-hand side, you can see that animal husbandry is also a large contributor to phosphorus load. The same report also includes this picture showing that if we turned from current diets to more fish-based and plant-based diets, the carbon emissions would be around 30–40% lower than they are today. So in this respect, there is a lot to do for us to diminish the carbon load of how we eat. Now, if we look at the consumption of animal proteins and the prospects that we have for change in that, here's the first quite alarming picture that we can take. The Eat Lancet Commission published last year a large report that gained a lot of publicity in which they forecast or present a great food transformation that they think is needed. The report notes that by 2050, we should reduce the worldwide meat and sugar consumption by more than 50% and increase the consumption of nuts, fruits, vegetables and legumes by 100%. And in the picture you can see the intake recommended reference diet with a dotted line, and the bars represent the current intake by region. And you can see that our current consumption of red meat, starchy vegetables, eggs, poultry, and also to some extent dairy exceed the reference intake, particularly in the well-off parts of the world, and we consume too little fruits, vegetables, grains, etc. Now, if we look at meat in more detail, you can see here on the upper part of the picture that during the past 60 years or so, the world consumption of meat has more than tripled. And on the lower part, you can see regional differences in the rate of growth, particularly in China during the past 20-30 years. The increase of meat consumption in total has increased very rapidly, but also, for instance, in Central and South America, Asia, etc. and Africa too. Basically, India is the part of the world where meat consumption has not increased as much. Now, if we look at Finland, we can see here these are figures from the balance sheet for food commodities published by Luke every year. From 1950, the consumption of meat in total has almost tripled, not quite, but nearly so. We can also see that the structure of meat consumption has changed quite a lot. Today, we consume a lot of poultry meat, and that is the type of meat, the consumption of which has increased very rapidly and is increasing at the moment too, whereas the consumption of beef and pork is much more stable. If we look at milk, which is also important in terms of environmental effects, we can see here that total milk consumption in Finland is declining. It's declining quite rapidly, and it's still doing so. During the 2000s, we've gone from almost 150 kilos per person to a little above 100 kilos per person. And also the structure of milk consumption has changed. However, the decline in basic milk consumption is partly offset by the fact that we now consume more yogurt and cheese. The blue and the green lines in the figure show the increase in these products. Whereas sour milk and butter, for instance, are declining. But the more refined products are gaining popularity in milk products too. Now, these are figures from a survey, Ruokatieto, which is published, I think, every 2 years, showing what kind of dishes Finns like to eat. These are figures from 1980, a list from 1985 and 2015. And I've marked with red those dishes that contain meat, and with yellow those dishes that might contain meat. And the lists actually show that the favorite and popular dishes have not changed that much during 30 years. We still like to eat meatballs and minced meat sauce, and chicken, etc. So we like to eat meat dishes in our everyday life, although there is some change to fish and vegetarian foods. We can also see, based on consumer surveys, that the cultural position of meat in Finland is still quite strong. Here what we have are figures from 2 surveys. The first one conducted in 2010 and the other one in 2018 as part of 2 projects that I was involved in myself. And the data are relatively representative of the Finnish population. Here we can see that the majority of Finns think that meat is an important part of a varied diet. The share has gone down somewhat, but still almost 3 out of 4 Finns think that meat is an important part of a varied diet. And there are some differences between women and men. Basically, these figures also confirm what has been also found in other studies several times, that for men, meat seems to be more important than for women. Also in restaurants, many people prefer to eat meat. The change in this respect has not been that large, and again, differences between women and men. The majority also says that they are used to cooking meat dishes, and also that it is important that there's own meat production in Finland in the future too. So meat does have a position in the Finns' hearts and stomachs too. However, it's evident too that people are more concerned about climate change, and that they are more open to beans and plant-based proteins than they were before. The majority, not a large majority, but over half of the respondents agreed that in order to slow down climate change, we should considerably reduce meat consumption. And here the difference between women and men is not as large as in the previous questions. And also many people think that beans are a versatile ingredient and that they would like to learn to cook more vegetarian dishes. Particularly women would like to learn to do this. We can also see some changes in vegetarianism. These are figures mostly from the so-called Suomi Syö survey conducted, I think, every year by a commercial company. And if you look at the figures, you can see that almost 18% of the respondents in 2018 said that they followed some diet which did not include meat or red meat. And there's been a quite rapid increase in the number of people who follow some kind of a vegetarian or semi-vegetarian diet. You can see also that there are large differences between different population groups. Here you can see, first of all, that there are differences between women and men. The red bar here depicts the share of those who follow a diet with no red meat, and the green kind of dotted bar is a vegan or vegetarian diet. And here you can see that out of women, young women who are younger than 25, quite a large share followed a no red meat or vegan or vegetarian diet. Among young men, the share was a lot lower. But interestingly, if you compare women and men who are between 25 and 34, the differences are not that big. And when you go to older age groups, the differences are not that large either, or it varies somewhat between the age groups. So I think these figures show that particularly among the younger generations, vegetarian is these days quite a popular option. Now, what can we then do in order to advance sustainable food consumption? Dutch researchers Harry Eiken and Jan de Boer in their recent article have considered how alternative proteins could be mainstreamed, as they say, and they argue that we need action at different levels. We need action at the level of diets, so that alternative protein options would be better available in convenient forms, so that they could form an important part of the diet. We also need changes in dishes, so that we could eat meals with dishes that include alternative protein options. We need changes at the level of ingredients, so that the appeal and familiarity and palatability of alternative protein options would increase. And also at the level of bites, as they say, the sensory experiences and associations should be improved in order to for consumers to adopt alternative proteins. Tara Garnett, who is a leader of the Food Climate Research Network at the University of Oxford, some years ago published this list of what she termed low greenhouse gas food behaviors. This is based on her analysis of food-related emissions and also policies. And in her list, she lists actions that are and behaviors that she gives high priority and medium priority. Also low priority behaviors are listed, but on the high priority category, she lists that we should eat fewer meat and dairy products, and also that we should eat no more than we need in order to maintain a healthy body weight. And possibly high impact behavior is also not wasting food. And I think after the publication of Garnett's article in 2011, the focus on food waste has increased, so that nowadays most people would consider avoiding food waste a high priority action without any question marks. She also lists as medium impact behaviors eating seasonal and field-grown vegetables, and also preparing food for more than one person and for several days, and freezing, etc. Also accepting variation in quality and supply. And I think for many Finns, it comes a bit of a shock that we should consume less foods with low nutrition value, including tea and coffee. So I think there's much to do for that in that respect, if we want to pay attention to this advice. Also, it is recommended that we cook and store foods in more energy conserving ways, and go to the grocery store on foot or buy over the internet, which is of course at the moment on the increase. I end here, but I would like to note that we can see, if we look at the changes that we see in the statistics concerning food related opinions, and the meanings that people give to food, we can see that there are some changes that are taking place. People pay more attention to sustainability issues, particularly ecological sustainability, than before. But as noted by, for instance, in the policy brief by the Finnish Environment Institute, we not only need dietary changes and reduction of food waste, we also need the development of environmentally friendly agricultural methods, and we need comprehensive changes in food policy in order to advance more sustainable food consumption and eating in the future. Thank you. Sorry, I can't hear you if you're saying something to me, but I'm opening now the YouTube.
Yes, hello Mari, hello from
Hello.
Kuopio. I am just asking our participants here in Kuopio if they have any questions to you before we let you go. Thank you already for the very interesting discourse. Gave us a lot to think about for sure.
Thank you.
Would you have any questions to Mari? Yes, please. We have one question from Antti Iire, Savonia University.
Yes.
Mari, thank you for the interesting presentation. Can you confirm that here in Finland, the milk and meat production produces less carbon emissions than outside of the world, and in the world, and why is this? Thank you.
Did you hear the question, Mari?
Yes, I think I did. Unfortunately, I'm not an environmental scientist myself. And I think this is a question that experts in Luke and Syke are better able to respond than I am. I have heard this argument before, but I'm sorry, I can't really take a stand on it.
Okay, thank you. We understand this. Yes, thanks a lot.
But I might add the one thing that is important in the Finnish context, which is that we have a lot of land which cannot really be used for crop farming. So there is the argument that it is better to use that for producing, for instance, feed for animal production than to leave it out of use. So that is a point for animal production in the Finnish context.
Thank you for that. Any other questions to Mari? I guess we are all very happy. So thank you very much. Thank you for the interesting discourse.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye. Bye.
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot. Bye.
We will see a video, in fact, on growth in wellness and gastronomy travel, setting the context. Our speaker joins us from Hungary through this video, Laszlo Pucklo from Xellem Limited. And in the program, this video is 20 minutes long, but because it's so very interesting and so good, we will show it in its entirety, and it will be, in fact, 43 minutes long. So this means that people here on site in Kuopio, we will not have a common health break, so we will not stop for a break at 11:10, but you feel free to step outside if you want. There will be some coffee and refreshments outside at 11:10, so you can step outside, have your coffee, and come back in and follow the video to its end. So we will start with the video now. It will be 43 minutes long. And then we will continue as per the program. And also, please, people joining us via the live stream, you can do the same. Please have a cup of coffee and come back and join and watch this interesting video from Laszlo Pucklo, Hungary.
So hello everybody. Hyvää huomenta. Since we are in Finland, I think we need to give the gratitude in Finnish. Thank you very much for the invitation and this opportunity, and really appreciate. Sadly, cannot be there in person, as many of us we can't, which is exceptional situation, but you know, there you go. We try to do as much as we can. I got the invitation to have a short presentation of what's the relationship between wellness and gastronomy travel. And if you don't mind, I'm going to give you more of a think piece with various angles, based on which a discussion can be started. And I think that's the most of any conference that you can expect, that now you have some interesting insights. So let's start with that. As you know, at least some of you might know, I have been in the business for good 25 years. Recent in the last 8 years, my major role is, what you can see is that I am designing and engineering well-being based experiences for destinations and for companies. This is a very unique opportunity, since we look at all the local resources for a destination or for a new project, and we define this architecture of how well-being can be improved of the guests, obviously, as well as the workers there. So I'm a tourism person by education, at the same time doing some arts as well as design work, and this is now a combination of tourism, travel, business, arts, and wellness. Authored several books and industry papers on the relationship of travel and health. So I believe we can have an exciting discussion. At least we can start a very interesting discussion now. I think it's very good to have a short reminder how the UNWTO and the European Travel Commission have defined jointly the relationship of travel or tourism and well-being. Since you can see, especially when you are in Finland, and our Finnish colleagues will nod now, since they know that in Finnish they don't use wellness tourism, they use well-being tourism. Still, looking at the terminologies and the taxonomies, we understand, and it's been recommended by WTO, that any kind of travel contributes to the traveler's well-being. So either family travel, business travel, cultural travel, gastronomy travel, whatever it is, it does have a contribution to the traveler's well-being, however short-lived. So we always have a little argument with the Finnish colleagues that is it now wellness tourism, well-being tourism, because of the language and the national differences, but still, in general, we understand and we agreed that well-being is influenced by travel most of the time in a positive way. Also, I think it's good to have a short overview of where wellness tourism actually sits. It is understood that it's under the umbrella of health tourism, where your primary motivation is related to health, some sort of health, because it can be divided into medical or wellness. There are some overlaps between how we call medical wellness, but most of the time medical is separated from wellness. Don't forget that the idea is here, as in most of the W2 definitions, or all of them actually, the primary motivation of the travelers. That's what counts, not what they actually visit, because then you can have museum tourism, spa tourism, and all that, and we don't get to that sort of thing. So the idea is that you would like to take in some sort of activity, or would like to take part in some sort of activity that contributes, improves your state of health or well-being, for the matter, either physically, mentally, socially, and it contributes to your well-being per se. And this is when it becomes very tricky, since, as we agreed, every kind of travel contributes to well-being in some fashion. We need to look at those kind of trips where the wellness motivation is in the core. That's number one. Before we get there, let me take you to a little ride in the international and meta trends and trends that do have an impact on gastronomy, food, as well as on travel and wellness travel. When we look at, and this is already a critical component here, that we absolutely mustn't mix wellness demand with wellness travel. We do have wellness demand. Just because someone on a business trip, although no one is a business trip right now, but when we will have business trips again, travelers may want to take a massage in the evening because they're busy and tired. And it doesn't mean that they become wellness tourists. They are just tourists with wellness demand and looking for healthy options. And wellness tourism, when it becomes the number one motivation, it may sound just splitting hair right now. And when you look at international data, some may suggest that there is some primary and secondary wellness tourism and all that. All those recommendations, we know that those who are researching tourism, that the motivation that counts, and at the same time we look at the spending pattern, the activities the guests taking part, because we would like to see, we would like to map what exactly they're doing during their trip. Most of gastronomy providers would have a dedicated opportunity in the wellness demand, not necessarily in wellness tourism per se, there as well, but more in wellness demand, those who are interested in something that's related to wellness. Keep that in mind. We'll come back to that because that has a significant relevance here. So what's happening? Chelsea, there are some major mega trends. I don't know how many of you are looking at all these trend forecasts, especially now when we don't even know what's happening tomorrow because of this global pandemic. Making and creating mega trends or defining mega trends is a very, very risky forecast, but still we have a good number of those. And many of that would have a direct impact on what we eat, what we drink, how we live. So we're already in gastronomy and already in wellness. Just look at technology and we have all the wearables that have an impact on measuring and monitoring what we do and how we live and how we feel. We have the changing values, especially in Generation Z, who became very worried and interested in environmental responsibility related issues, quite rightly so. Personalization, especially we will see because of the various allergies in terms of food in particular, but also in wellness, because one like hot springs, other likes walking in a forest and taking a forest bath. So it's very, very personal. We don't have this similar, a very generic thing such as in a conference center. Healthy living, whatever that means, because that changes literally overnight, what is healthy. We're also looking for authenticity, and this is where tourism is the number one industry, which can benefit from this authenticity, but now guests looking for those. more and more, and at the same time simplistic solutions, not over complicated ones. And also we do the ethical living. When you have a responsibility and you show your responsibility towards a local community in terms of food, in terms of activities, in terms of demands. So we have a lot of quite relevant megatrend issues that we need to bear in mind. Also, I don't know how many of you visit the World Economics Forum strategic outlooks. A lot of I really often look at it because they do some amazing work, and I recommend that. And especially when you look at the future of food, I think the whole conference and the whole, let's say, special issue in whichever journal could dedicate its attention to the future of food and travel and wellness, or well-being, although they're not quite the same, since they have so many interested parties here in terms of organizations, in terms of NGOs, in terms of interest groups, external influencers, other industries. So the future of food, not just nutrition and health, but also environmental footprint, demographics, value chain, agriculture and accessibility, all sort of measures. Certainly I'm not going to go through one by one, but I really invite you to look at it because it's a great source and it's a great eye-opener to look at various parameters. Also, when you look at wellness trends, we know that smarter intake is one that people recommend. And if you think about food or gastronomy per se, obviously many others can be also highlighted in terms of lifestyle, in terms of closing the loop, but also we can have various other evolutionization, environmental engineering, and all that related to what we eat and what we do and what we think. That's all very nice, but people used to have status anxiety, but especially nowadays we have health anxiety. So how is this going to be resolved? What exactly we are going to do about all this? Even before the COVID-19, people showed more and more interest towards health related issues, and they had health anxiety, and the wearables, which probably many of you have, wearing it on your wrists, on your phones, and checking your footsteps per day, that often becomes a source of extra anxiety. Because if you didn't do the 10,000 steps on Tuesday night, when your wearable reminds you that you didn't do your job, you become stressed just before you go into bed. So that's a serious issue that we need to look at. So health anxiety is something that we all need to think of. And I know it's a little stupid example, but exhaustipated could be a new word when you're so tired that you don't even care. And that is certainly something that's a first world problem in Asia, in many North American cities, urban areas, and also Western European areas and urban areas. This is a major source of stress and major source of situation. I think it's very important that we highlight the difference between lifespan and health span. Yet again, in the middle of a global pandemic, health span is something that now really everybody wants to understand what that means, and many of us would like to know what I can do for it, or what shall I do to avoid something. Often, international institutions and national governments look at lifespan, how many years one can live, but now I really believe that we need to look at how we live and how healthy we can live, whatever number of years we are given. But yet again, it has an impact on activities, mental state, mental health, and also diet, gastronomy, and food. I'm absolutely sure that many of you know this, the perfectly imperfect, which is, well, has been a trend for a while, when you don't look for the perfect shape fruits and veg, but you look at what sourced locally, what hasn't been treated by chemicals, what was done responsibly, so protecting the animals and also the insects around it while it was growing. So we have a lot of different issues that we need to look at here. Probably this is new to some of you or many of you, but it's very directly linked to wellness and to food and gastronomy. We have now new dry bars. I don't know how many of you understand the term, which is dry bar. The dry bar means they don't serve alcohol, but they serve all these great drinks, which are priced at the same price if they were alcohol. That's a trendy thing in urban areas, especially many people would like to follow trends, and they do follow that. Also, all the various issues that people may have in terms of eating. Running a restaurant now is technically a nightmare, however fast food or not, because of the gluten allergy, dairy, egg, sugar, soya beans, organic, fair trade, and many more, would create a serious headache to any chef or any gastronomy manager. How to manage it, how to create those items or those meals, how many options they have. So we do have a serious challenge in our hands, how to address the demands of the market and how much of this is actually justified, and how can you prove that something was handmade or soya-free or vegan. We had great stories, inverted comma, great stories of farmers selling vegetables, pretending to be all organic, and they couldn't prove it because they bought it in the corner shop, but they resold it as organic. So we have great challenges. The question is who is going to overlook that, and how we can have a viable business model where everybody can have his or her own favorite meals, whichever trip they have, whichever leisure activity they do, but they also offering business opportunities for the service providers. Also, we have agri-hoods, which I'm sure many of you know, not neighborhoods, but agri-hoods, which are shared gardens, which are a part of wellness improving activity, because you're in nature, you have a responsibility, you grow things, and you share what you produced. It's all fantastic and beautiful. To take it more on the lighter side, if we have anyone from Sweden, I think they might be laughing now, because in Malmö, in Sweden, you have the Disgusting Food Museum. I really would recommend all of you to visit it, especially because you can have all that lovely signs on the wall like this one, such as we have 10 days since the last vomit, which means that now people would like to taste, smell, or even look at various foods, food items from all around the world, which actually are not nice, and they would like to be horrified by it. I know it's very extreme, but don't forget, visitors, when they travel, or travelers, they would like to see something unusual or something very, very different, and even food can make that mark. And just to be very, very direct, as of where we live now, we can find a mask that fits my face. Obviously, that's an exaggerated situation, but we know that because of the lockdowns, many people do have some issues now with alcohol. Very good. So what's happening? This is happening. We do have an issue with healthy foods. Often they don't look nice, don't smell nice, and don't actually want to repeat it, but you still do it because that's what you're supposed to do, because that's what healthy people do, that's what your Instagram people do, that's what you recommended. But many of the food items were recommended as healthy don't actually taste nice or taste very, very differently. Also, we now have to deal, especially in the wellness travel part, when healthy eating becomes an obsession. And if you spoke actually Greek, you might like to see this. We need to deal with orthorexia, which is when you're obsessed with healthy eating and you become someone who doesn't eat a thing, because you find out about every single item on the plate, a reason why you wouldn't like to eat it, why you don't think that's healthy. In wellness resorts and hotels, we do have these challenges that people are in the end paying a lot of money for a full-course meal or an all-inclusive package, but all they eat is a tomato or one leaf salad because they believe that that's not healthy or not relevant to them. So we do have a responsibility here of how to create the understanding that you need to have balanced diet to actually survive and be healthy. This is one of my favorites. Any of you flew ever air from Taiwan to Japan, for example, might have seen this menu, which is super cute because it's Hello Kitty. And it's not just for the kids, because it's a kids' meal box, but also the adult passengers can have Hello Kitty themed snacks or appetizers. That's, you might say, what's to do with wellness? It does, because of the psychological component, the happiness, the component, the hormones that it releases, that you are smiling, that you're happy. And this is when we go back to that people actually enjoy having wellness contributing services, even if we're not calling them wellness. This is called Hello Kitty. I think probably you might agree with me that this is not something that is rare, because people say that I do yoga, but actually I'm kidding, I just drink wine in my yoga pants. We have a major challenge that people pretend and wear things because they are healthy, or they bought it in a sports shop. They don't actually use it for health-related activities. Instead, they're just drinking wine. Obviously, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Still, this is my very own bread maker, and it happens to be a pleasure and well-being in one go. Don't ask me how it becomes a well-being program, because that's a chocolate bread, far from healthy, or this is olive and ham, which is processed foods. But this is what sells, even in the gastronomy and food, something, if you call it well-being or wellness. And it's last week in our local shop. This is wellness tuna. Honestly, I have zero idea, but enlighten me, anyone. Feel free to send me an email how tuna can be wellness. Is it wellness to me, or is it wellness for the tuna? I really, really don't know, but we can buy wellness tuna. And just for those who are vegan, this is a very contrasting recommendation that is it the same relationship when someone looks at, you know, the grass, which is obviously very stupid and very extreme. But when you create a wellness package, when you create a gastronomy travel, you need to understand the, as we all do, but I just wanted to highlight the differences, how difficult it is to actually please our guests, given the recent state of allergies and sensitivity. One of my other favorite is that you can buy ice cubes and you can order it online. Before you say that I lost my mind, that's a possibility, and you can understand what an ice cube actually does. Not much, as we understand it, but now we have now business when you can buy ice cubes, and you need to understand what kind of nutritional content it may have. Obviously, it doesn't have anything, but now you can do that as well. And just to summarize this one off, I really wouldn't like to try Brussels sprouts flavored tea. Still, if you were running a destination which is very much based on let's say gastronomy, as well as fruit and veg, you might say that you create signature drinks, signature foods, for example, Brussels sprouts flavored tea. So do remember a couple of things. What it is, often that's nothing more than just a label. Yes, what you see is broccoli, but it's just changed in the 1970s, and that would be a wonderful exercise if you were, you know, playing on Kahoot or something. Could you tell me how the name of broccoli has changed? Because it was fresh, it was sold as fresh, it was sold as fat-free in the 80s, it was sold as low carb in the 90s, it's all natural in the noughties, and 2010 it's organic, and then sadly we almost got into the synthetic phase, but we're still talking about the same broccoli. I think that's kind of an eye-opener, at least it was to me, that one single thing which hasn't changed at all in the last 40 years have been sold under, or 50 years, have been sold under very different labels depending on what the market wanted to hear and what kind of relevance that given thing had. So anytime you create something, think of the opportunities. It's nothing always one-sided. You can have 4 or 5 different sides of the same story, which is a great thing, even if you might say it's nothing more than just marketing. And yes, it looks like a delicious cake, but we also know that vegan birthday cake just made of flour and sadness, which is coming from a major media source. And that's how they sell veganism, or not, or they don't. And well, yes, any of you who are vegan, we tried with our son several days of veganism because he wanted to try it. It's good, it has its benefits, but also has its limitations. And when it becomes very direct and one way, you might lose guests saying that that's very nice, but I would like to be a flexitarian, which probably understand. Flexitarian is that I'm vegan on Thursday lunchtime, but I would like to eat some fish and also some ice cream on Thursday evening. Flexitarian. This is the silliness of the business when a dark chocolate covered pretty much 80% plastic biscuit becomes a wellness biscuit, but food item, and we know you can buy it in the local shop. And I think I would recommend you to read this. Wellness is a waste of time. I don't know how many of you are reading Medium. They do have very interesting think pieces when we find out that various things which are sold, and I need to refer to Gwyneth Paltrow's various shenanigans, candles and things. It's not for a public lecture to mention what it is, but it's public and it's all out there, it's all advertised, and it's all blogged and blogged. And anyone and everyone who is serious about wellness holds her or his head saying that I can't believe this, that we got to this level, but this is what it is, and it becomes a major con. This is not good for the business, what we are really in. And well, we can call it a binge wellness because that's, again, food and drink. Would you like to try gin and tonic yoga? After every asana, you have a sip of gin and tonic. Stupid, unnecessary, just a game or a hoax, I don't know. But some people appreciate it and they believe this is one way to go ahead, that you combine fun factor with some health components as well as some gastronomy components. So what can we do? This is in Eastern Europe or also in the Baltic countries. One apple a day will keep the doctor away. This is a statement that we have been hearing for decades, and this is actually from a hotel in Estonia. And every time, every day, a new apple was put on this little stand, and guess what? Most of the time that apple is being eaten. Not necessarily because they want to comply with the recommendation, but it's a display and it's out there, and it becomes one a day. This is our job, how we can use this, and it's a local apple, locally sourced apple. So it has various good characteristics, but it's not gastronomy travel per se, it's not wellness travel per se at all, but it is using some sort of fruit to improve the well-being of the guests. And we also know, and one of the holistic healing sites suggested that the best 7 doctors is going to be, one of the 7 is diet. Obviously, if you're in Asia, that's a different diet. If you are in North America, a different diet. If you are in Finland, that's a different diet. That's the beauty of it. That's why we often have gastronomy travel, to try different diets, how it works, and which part of it is the one we actually like. Let me just suggest a couple of pointers for later when you have some time to think about it. In wellness in particular, we often have illusions. We call it illusion, which is nothing else but repainting the label. We do pretty much the same thing, but we call it wellness because that's what sells. We have entertainment, just like the gin and yoga, because it becomes entertaining thing, but also at the same time some wellness thing. We have validant, when a destination or service provider becomes very focused and does nothing else but, for example, detox, although it's now being questioned if physically or biologically possible to have detoxification, but never mind, we do have a lot of products and packages like that, especially liquid diets and wellness resorts. and also wellnessification, when the whole service provision becomes wellnessified. Sorry for this stupid word, but that summarizes rather well. That it has the beginning and the end, the middle and the end, and every part of it is looked at it through the wellness glass. That's 4 directions, and destinations, packages, service providers can choose from it. What they do is, what you can do is, and I do recommend that for everyone, when you look at the wheel of wellness, as the 6 domains of wellness, just do look at what exactly is the motivation that your guests coming to you. If you're a gastronomy provider and you are on the Michelin Guide, most likely there will be some emotional as well as social as well as occupational wellness related factors here, because you want to reward yourself, you want to indulge yourself, you want to show to important others that you do. This is the beauty of creating services, that you look at the wellness domain, the wellness wheel, and you identify each and one of those domains and the items under those domains which could be relevant to your place, and then you create the package or you create the service. People they don't want to, they pay for a service, but they buy indulgence. They pay for the service, they buy reward oneself. They pay for the service and they want to actually have important others around them. This is probably very academic or very far away from serving a meal, but you need to understand what is the driving wheel behind the guest, and we always find some wellness contributing domains and factors here. Oh, it's all very good. When we work with destinations and regions, we always look at all these factors, all these 9 factors, which are purification. Does it have a relevance in terms of gastronomy, for example? In terms of beauty, has the local community been using any kind of gastronomy-related product that contributes to beauty, internal beauty and external beauty? How water is related to gastronomy here? Is it a rainwater, for example, used for cooking? How can we approve that? Why is that important to someone who hasn't ever tried it before? How is aroma? What kind of herbs and plants, local herbs and plants, used for cooking or in gastronomy or drinks, and giving the aroma, not just the flavor? Do we have a movement-related activity which might have celebratory for gastronomy events? How is vitality looked at? How is living in terms of having herbs and plants around your room, in the room, for purifying the air, to having the natural sense to clear away, let's say, mosquitoes? Obviously, food and nutrition and music and rhythm. Not all of those relevant for gastronomy, but most of that would have some sort of gastronomy, food and drink related factor. For example, if you're in Taiwan, you can have a tea spa, which is this lovely gentleman which goes into a mug and creates a tea, and they call it a spa. As you can see in this logo, is that you are taking a spa. But it's just, again, a different kind of flavors, different kind of experience that you create. That is not just a bookmark, but when you open the bookmark, it becomes a tea spa, because this person is sitting on the edge of your mug. And it's funny, entertaining, as well as local teas. When you go to Sicily, you would have Sicilian sorbet, which is now, sorbets are everywhere. Sicilian sorbet with orange, ice and mint would have the necessary cleansing as well as refreshing qualities. If you look at the sensory sensation, this is not food and gastronomy, it's very much local. And as you can see, this gentleman created this flower garden because the wife was blind, and she could have the sensory sensation through the nose, and that became a major tourist attraction. People wanted to sit in this flower garden and just enjoy the sense of the flowers. And yes, this is eggs. These are eggs boiled in hot water in Thailand, but you can have the same in China. And from the wellness perspective, this becomes what we call well-entertainment. Why? Because most of us, for example, don't have access to hot springs, natural hot springs. Two, we wouldn't even think about having any such thing done, cooking in that hot spring. But as long as you get there and you're around, you definitely want to buy it, want to try it. And of course, you have the minerals in the egg. You use some local resources and provide some local businesses. If you go to Iceland, if you have anyone from Iceland here, you would say that you can bake bread in the hot lava in Iceland. And by the time you get out from the hot springs, your bread is ready and baked, and you yourself put it in the little pot. It's baked and you can eat it for lunch. And it's entertainment. It's not a bad thing at all, although you might suggest that it's like a Disneyfication, but it's more like a local tradition which then being introduced to guests, and it has some gastronomy as well as wellness related qualities. And one of the very simple ideas, which is nothing new here, the fine dining, the Fresh West out in the open on the by the sea, by the ocean, with not chandeliers and everything, but more like having the sea breeze. This is something that Western societies do appreciate as luxury. And then instantly we went into, from the gastronomy travel to the luxury travel. So I think the critical thing here is to have the understanding of what you have locally and what kind of guests you want and what they value. What are those wellness-related expectations, what they have in terms of distressing, in terms of belonging, in terms of micro-societies. We are working with the Central American government, and we talk to the service providers there, creating food items and creating service packages. They are all wide open eyes to see how small but new ideas can create a very different value propositioning, and that's very important here, not sales propositioning, but value propositioning. So anytime you do any such thing which is not UX anymore, at least I wouldn't recommend it, not user experience, more like well-being experience, you need to apply all the UX approaches, but you also have to have an understanding of how well-being is being set up or is being created for the locals as well as for your guests. This is not gastronomy per se, but it's very local, and it just gives you the idea of the way of thinking. This is called kilt yoga, which is in Scotland. And yes, these gentlemen are practicing high, actually very skilled yoga in a kilt up in the Scottish Highlands. And yes, they do have various poses. And yes, they're not wearing underwear, but I'm not going to give you the third photo. But it just gives you an idea of how something which is nothing to do with Scotland, but fused with something which is Scottish, can become a big thing. Now they're having locations in various parts of the UK, they become a very big hit. And these people are really practicing yoga, they're not joking, this is not just a con. They're really doing something really exciting, what we call wellpreneur, which is small-scale entrepreneur in wellness, coming up with something fusion and something creative. And yes, when you have your mobile meditation studio, often in urban areas, we might need to have it because you need to create that space that you understand this is the place to meditate. What kind of drink, what kind of snack are you going to be offering here? Because those who are helping you to meditate may not think of the gastronomic component, but this is the option here to combine the worlds of gastronomy as well as holism, as well as wellness, and how we all together can create a better product. And as a summary here, don't forget that most likely your guests from wellness perspective can be grouped into one of those categories. And it's your choice which one of them you want, or which of those you actually want. You need to understand that those who take it as a lifestyle, so they do it every day. They have a very different set of expectations from those who are in the Me Too, but not in the hashtag Me Too, but more like I want to do the same thing because of fashion, and so on and so on. So do spend some time, try to categorize your guests, try to look at your assets, and then create, or resources, then create the services. So some messages I would like to highlight in the end. Don't mix up wellness demand with wellness tourism. That's not the same. There are overlaps, but they're not the same. Please don't copy. Use inspiration. Adapt, but don't copy. And don't fall for new global trends, especially in Finland. I think all my colleagues can agree with me that, especially in the east of Finland, colleagues who are great in well-being related researches, that this is not a global thing. We do have meta trends that's relevant globally, but how it becomes a local trend, this is our job to translate it to local trends, and don't just copy something because that was said somewhere. Falling for labels just because someone famous on Instagram promotes a new wellness product or practice, that's nothing to do probably with actual wellness, but it's more like just a fashion item, the Me Too in that sense. And don't avoid believing that food is just only fuel, which I'm sure I don't need to tell you that because or you are all specialists here, but many people just look at it as fuel, nothing more than that, and more the better. So consider, do and apply. Need to look for evidence for anything food, drink related. Look for evidence. Why that thing has been used in the last 50 years, 200 years, 400 years? What's the evidence? What's the contraindication, if there were any? You have a value proposition, not sales propositioning. Do have the dynamics, apply it. If not, we're happy to help you how to do it. We have 5 or 6 senses. Use them. Food has, the sight, the sense, the smell, the taste, the arrangement, and even the sound of it being prepared, all sorts. And when you create something that contributes to wellness, you need to look at all the senses, even beyond. Some people don't eat tomatoes because they say that's growing at night and that's taking in the dark energy of space. Up to you. Do you believe in that? You think it's nonsense? You think it's something that very spiritual people might actually follow? You don't know, but we know that it's happening out there. You talk to people who are local and try to create something which is a well-being archaeologist to look at why certain items have been on the menu for hundreds of years. The blue zone, all the beans, why then seeds, why is that people are living long, living healthily, and their diet is whatever it is, and it's not a Michelin star diet, it's very basic, but it has all the necessary minerals, for example. So find those people. And don't worry sometimes not using the term wellness. You don't have to. It's not selling anymore, I don't think. Or it doesn't add anything. It's more like counterproductive because, oh, well, yes, of course, you have the wellness tuna. People, those who are taking wellness seriously, are not going to buy it because they believe it's just a new marketing gimmick. I think it's a good closing sign or a photo. You have fast food, but you have slow food fast, or slow food fast, or food fast but being slow. This is the combination, the fusion of, we understand that slow food is healthy and we have to take time, but sometimes we have to have it quickly. And this is the small and medium-sized opportunity here to adapt to circumstances and fusing in for us. So thank you very much for this opportunity to the organization as well as Diane of inviting me. It's really much appreciated, and if nothing else, I hope it was a good couple of minutes of having some ideas for discussions, and feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to discuss how to do or not to do certain things. Kiitos, thank you, and enjoy your event.
For this very interesting presentation. Again, a lot to think about. I think one of the take-home messages that I will take with me is the notion of perfectly imperfect. So after, there's no need to feel exhausted anymore. Thank you so much. As it was a video, we unfortunately don't have any opportunity to ask questions to Laszlo. I believe our next speaker Are we ready to start and continue straight away, or do we have a few minutes break?
Marjukka, are you online?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so as we have Professor Marjukka Kolehmainen from the University of Eastern Finland already online with us, so we'll give the floor to her, so to speak, and she will speak to us about food trends. Are they good for well-being or only good business? Welcome, Marjukka.
And now you can.
I will share.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank you organizers for inviting me to give a speech of this very interesting and important topic. And of course, for the opportunity. I have to say first that I would have liked to join you in person at Kuopio Klubi, but unfortunately my passion on running in the nearby woods with my dogs led this time to a small accident which prevents me to be there, and thus I'm participating to the discussion then online. So my topic here today is food trends, good for well-being or only for business. I have been listening the previous speeches in great interest, and there are many things that tackle also with my topic. And let's see what kind of conclusion and interaction we will have during the this presentation. As we already heard, the food system, we need to have a change, and the change is currently evident. We have increasing population globally, and it will increase 60% by 2050. There is a climate change that we need to tackle, and still some 30% of population on the globe is suffering on malnutrition. Then over half of us live in cities, and even more of the population has been estimated to move to the urban areas. And then we have a digitalization and robotics that is disrupting industry, creating challenges, but also several opportunities. This is sort of what we have within our society environment, the challenges that we have to tackle, but it also creates many opportunities. What about the consumer? We all are consumers, and at the moment there are trends that we want to have a sustainability in all aspects of our lives. Safety is one of the hot topics, and especially due to pandemic, it has increased into greater levels of importance. At the same time, we would like to have more convenience in food, convenience in all areas of life. And at the same time, we want to be respected and handled as individuals, not as part of the groups, but as me and myself. And as we heard, well-being is also a trend that we want, consumers want more, but do they know what it is? And of course, we need pleasure. We need pleasure from food. We need pleasure from our being. Here I gathered some trends that are related to food food production, and then the consumers, how consumers feel these items. So as you can see, and as we heard, there are a lot of trends impact at the moment to be able to increase the plant-based eating. Eat something that is give us pleasure, to eat something that is colorful, enjoyable. Also, the vegan choices or vegetarian choices are increasing within trends. Then also something delicate within delicacy sector, artisan, very, very delicious. Fermented products are also that are increasing, which is also partly related to the ancient ingredients. Fermented foods have been there for ages, and now they are increasing again. And we are all the time eating them, but probably we are not paying a lot of attention to them. What about the production? More and more impact has been paid to the local, small, and clean production. How we could create something that feels that is near us, made for us, and what kind of possibilities there are. At the same time, there is a requirement of sustainability, but also responsibility, which of course go many times hand in hand. And at least in Finland, there has been a lot of discussion in media about the sustainable packaging. How should we avoid unnecessary packaging, knowing at the same time that the packaging is increasing food safety? We want to know more about the origin of the food. We want to track down where the food comes from. And at the same time, which also go hand in hand, we want to increase the animal welfare. And at the same time, we may want to have have a knowledge on the trackable food. We want to know where it comes from. We want to have it sort of a slow food, but there is a demand also on agile primary production. So it should be responding very feasibly, very fast into the changing requirements. What about consumers? We want that our food is feasible, it's colorful, it's healthy and promotes well-being. We may want to go more and more to snacking, how to snack healthy. We want to, as I said before, to be respected as an individual. So we would like to to take into account the personalized well-being. We want to have a pleasure from our food, which is not a bad thing at all. And the food is more and more part of our identity. Mindfulness here, I mean that mindfulness regards to what we eat, what kind of food we eat. It might be of sustainability aspects that are respected. It might be of ethical aspects that we are respecting. So mindfulness in all those senses. And as Mari in the very first speech said, that consumers are segmented. We are more and more variating. So in that sense, at the moment we are consuming all basically the same food, but should we provide food that is targeted to the segments? Well, then I took an opportunity to address a couple of these trends from the view of healthiness, how we can look those trends from the view of nutrition and health. So plant-based eating, local, small, clean, responsibility, sustainability, health and well-being, and personalized well-being. So let's first go to this responsibility, sustainability, local, small, clean, in respect to how they promote health and well-being. Well, as I see it, I think that local food has potentially many benefits for health. So it's a sustainable in regards of it is produced from the short distances. It is produced many times on demand, which reduce waste. All those are sustainable issues. Origin of the food is known. We can track more easily the origin, which is responsible. And it may make it feasible to take also into account the animal welfare from the point of view of consumer or customer. Pleasure from food. All these above mentioned items from sustainable or origin of the foods, they come into the pleasure from foods. We are more able to take into the account mindfulness within our food choices. We may be able to choose from more variety of identifying in respect to identifying factors. So with that sense, we could have more pleasure from food than only the palatable taste. Well, short distances support then also the trends for freshness, for colorfulness, for plant-based eating, and consuming of foods with shorter shelf life, which is also part of food safety issue. But then again, if we look at the current food pyramid from the Finnish food, nutrition recommendation, I would say that it is in line with many aspects of local foods. And of course, as already mentioned, food is not only what is in it. It is also social thing. It is eating together. It is something that you put on a dinner with your family. And I have to say that I have eaten many times almost mind-blowing tastes of here locally in restaurants that are at the same time they are candy to my eyes, but they are also candy as socially, and they are also very healthy. So basically, we have been living in this kind of world. The food is produced somewhere in a really great or large in size factories, and they have produced to people all over the world. So we are basically offered the same food everywhere in the world. But nowadays it is clear trend, and actually the change is ongoing, that we might want to have our food produced locally. Maybe we want to also to have an impact what is produced, and how we order our food from the farmers. Maybe even request so that it is produced as a ready dinners, and then it's brought to our home, or then we can go and enjoy the environment, the surroundings in the farm, and fetch it by ourselves to our home. So this of course requires a lot of development locally. How we can produce the food that has previously been produced in very large factories, in very massive production, to more local, to more individual. But it is actually according to the trends. So this is well in line in the next item that I took, personalized eating, data in use. So I went to the Google, as we all do every day, and I wrote there me and my food, and there was 25 billion search results in less than a second. So that also tells something about this trend, individualism. So if we think that this food system is sort of individualized, how would you see that this individual here would be able to follow what is produced in farm, how it is produced in the factory to food, and how it is packaged in the factory, and how it is served, and she could order it. And then if it's combined with her personal health, her individual health monitoring, maybe even used the healthcare data from the hospitals or healthcare, public and private healthcare sector, her own data from her own sensors is integrated with the information that is coming in from this food system. And actually, this kind of movements are already happening. The latest addition to that is then the emotion tracking. How could we individualize even more? How could we ensure that we feel good what we have been eating? At the same time, it is healthy, but they are also happy food choices. And actually, there has been this is very simple way of detecting the happiness. And this was done. This research or study was done with a smartphone-based assessment, tracking what kind of food choices make the participants of this study happy. And here you can see that vegetables and fruits produce together the largest share of happiness. So information or knowledge that my choice is also healthy give at least this comparable happiness with sweets. We often consider the sweets or something delicious, for example, after hard work week, and we enjoy this kind of foods. But actually, based on this particular study, we could have the same experience by choosing colorful, delicious vegetables and fruits with them. Well, then if you go to the many of the same aspects that have been already discussed today about the plant-based eating and sustainability. This is the same report that Maris showed in her presentation, but I would like to go further on with the healthiness of it. So based on this report, we are a step backward. There are requests and trends on vegan diet and vegetarian diet, but I would like to draw your attention that this is a little bit different. Based on various reports, in addition to this Eat Lancet report, also from sustainability point of view, the mixed diet has been shown to be the best for sustainable and healthy. Together, the diet that is at the same time healthy and sustainable. So in that sense, although we need to do dramatic changes in our consumption habits regarding the foods we choose to eat, still again, there is a small room still for the animal-based foods also, based on this particular study. And culturally, these demands of change, they are dramatic. And of course, we have to consider how the consumers will follow this request or this trend. And we need to take into account that maybe we are not, maybe the demand is that we have to make the dramatic change, but maybe we need to consider to make it a little bit more slowly. I would like to point your attention to a couple of things here. So at the moment, the plant-based eating, the main trend within that is to find new protein sources, new kind of foods that are made for replacing the current consumption figures of animal-based food. But within our diet, at least in Nordic countries, we are many times eating whole grains, and whole grains produce actually 1/3 of our protein intake at the current moment. So we shouldn't forget it that we have very good plant-based proteins already in our diet, and maybe we can even address them more so that they are familiar, they are more culturally accepted within our consumers already now. And at the moment there is a lot of developments ongoing to produce even more variety from different whole grains. Another aspect is, of course, what I already said, that we should decrease the consumption of the animal-based protein sources. And the challenge is of course that we should secure the balanced and palatable diets for over 10 billion people on 2050. This is just a short example of the what kind of changes we should do for the change that I showed you compared to the current consumption figures. Vegetables and fruits. It is suggested and actually currently recommended that we should eat them 500 grams per day. And as you can see here, the vegetables, there is the recommended figure, so 500 grams per day, and we are still a little bit lagging behind. Here I would say that local foods have a possibility, a potential to produce, to invent more choices to address the increase of the needed increase in vegetable, fruit and berry consumption. Then again, if we think that this recommendation, 14 grams of, for example, beef per day, which is about 100 grams per week, and as we compare here, the current recommendation is 500 grams per week. And I think the next recommendation will recommend much lower amounts per week. And Finnish men and women, we still have something to do to reduce this amount, especially if we compare to this. And this is actually what I meant, that we need to take a little time here and give space for the future development, how to replace this animal red and processed meat within our diets. But actually the trends, they are many times very good for health. They go hand in hand, and that's why what I've been following, I have been really glad to see that trends towards the health and well-being, they are really supporting health and well-being. So this emphasis on vegetable-based foods and eating, that is of course something, this is actually what I took also from the current recommendation. In green, it is shown what kind of foods we should increase within our diet, what exchanges we should do, and what we should limit. And here you can see that this, for example, the emphasis on vegetable-based foods, it's really along what we know that currently about the healthy foods and healthy nutrition, healthy diets. Exactly the same trend is this reducing the meat and processed meat it is also along what we know of healthy eating. And cereals as whole grain as well. It is really going along to the supporting well-being and health, as is the quality of fat, so vegetable-based eating, and decrease in sugar-sweetened drinks, for example. So how to limit them and increase instead the, for example, local foods, berries, vegetable consumption. But there are some points that we need to pay attention to, since now we are eagerly developing new, especially the protein sources replacing the animal-based foods. I would like you to, when you next time go to the grocery store, please pay attention to what is really in the new kind of foods. As consumers, we many times when we talk about plant-based eating, plant-based food, we take the healthiness as a granted. So it should be health because it is done or produced from the plant. But actually, sometimes it is not. Many times it is, but sometimes it is not. And please pay attention to the quality of fat and salt content, for example. I will show you now a couple of examples. For example, this pulled oats, nyhtökaura, that is quite popular. It is very good in its nutrient content, but also within its ingredients as such. And actually, quite recently, it was granted to have this heart symbol that in Finland is a sort of a better choice given out by the Heart Association of Finland. Similar kind of quite a good choice is this corn, which has been there for a long time. When you go through the ingredients they are quite okay. And if you go then to the, for example, the fats, there is only a minor part of the fat is saturated fatty acids, and salt content is really good. But then there are issues that we should pay attention to, which has been actually surprised me. There is in part of these products, there is high amounts of coconut oil or palm oil, which are then saturated fatty acids. And when we think that this plant-based eating is towards the healthiness, we should take into account that these products sometimes they may include items that are not so healthy. So as in the previous speech, we shouldn't take the label as a granted and self-evident to say that, yes, this is also healthy. Of course, there are many things then that are then related to the mouth feeling, palatability, and how we feel that, how we taste it. And there might be that this kind of development is needed also in technology, so that we could find the technologies that we could use that support the healthy choices. Here you can see that this kind of patty, it produces 1/4 of daily saturated fat intake. So in that sense, it's quite a lot as a one food item. This one I actually discussed with my colleagues when I was discussing about this topic that my speech today will be, and we had a really nice discussion on on this particular thing, because here I think that the label may be misinterpreted, because these are plant-based cheese-like foods, which I recommend that you may want to pay attention to the nutritional facts. These examples are not now based on these figures that I took, but these are just examples on this sort of veggie cheeses. So this is the ordinary cheese that I took to compare, to show you the comparison of two different veggie cheeses. So here you can see that the saturated fat content is, with this example, it's the same as ordinary cow milk based cheese, and with this particular example, it is even more the saturated fat content. And then salt content is here, it is really lot more than in this sort of ordinary cheese. So these are things that we really should pay attention to. Especially there are these recommendations from the WHO Europe that we should really do something with our salt intake, because it is really has a huge health impact, and in this sense this also shows the importance of this kind of actions, that we should reduce the salt intake also at the population level, not only those who has a problems, for example, in their blood pressure. But all this then goes into the consumer. How consumer would know these things, how they should consider the messages in media that are really controversial. Do they rely on the evidence-based understanding, or are they totally confused? So at the moment, individuals, consumers, they have a great amount of knowledge, but what is it based on? Part of it is very valid and reliable information, but I think that many consumers are really mixed on what is really healthy, what is good for me, and who should I trust. There are a lot of different kind of personal experiences that are partly very valid, also from the health and nutrition point of view, but then there are opinions that are not as such. And this, together with current attitude and suspicion towards the experts and authorities, it may be really, really confusing for the consumer. Well, for the experts and researchers, it demands open discussion and communication. We should be more participating in the discussion within social media. And I have to say that we have in Finland at the moment a great number young generation nutritionists that are really active in social media. So you can find very nice information within Instagram, within Twitter, within Facebook, within Snapchat, that also the younger population is using a lot. And of course, we need to popularize the evidence-based understanding. And we have to remember, I don't like these controversies or this kind of black and white thinking at all, because many of these trends currently, they are along, they support the health and enjoyable eating. But at the moment, there are a lot of different kind of research also in Finland ongoing to find a new ways of producing these sort of a protein replacers that could be more healthy than at the moment some of these foods are. Then for the personal aspect, I would like to also raise this ecosystem. We have many ecosystem, food system, nutrition and health related ecosystems in Finland. Could they have a possibility and potential to participate more in this discussion, to also to relieve the needs of the consumer, to support the trends that also support health? So I would like to stop here and remind us all that food can only be healthy if it's eaten. And if it's eaten, it has to be among those that a consumer has chosen to be eaten. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope you can still hear me.
Thank you, Marjukka.
Thank you very much, Marjukka. Now that we have you online, maybe we can see with the people here in Kuopio if we have any questions to Marjukka. I believe we don't have any questions. Thank you so much, Marjukka. It was so interesting. Very good. Can you please hold so you can have the microphone? We have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Marjukka, when you were telling about this lecture, actually, first of all, it was super interesting. And also these questions on of the public, how do they get good answers to their questions when they are asking what is healthy and how to live. Do you think you could have a possibility to write a book of these issues so that it could be targeted to just the audience who are interested in these kind of issues?
Yes, actually, there currently are these kind of books that what is healthy, and there are a lot of ongoing actually in different online meetings. Maybe we should inform this more to the general consumer. And actually, this is quite nice idea that we could do that. Maybe in a collaboration among the different ecosystems. Jenny, note for you.
For sure. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you so much, Marjukka. It was so nice that you could join us.
Thank you very much.
Paul Schaefer, an author and also an ICAT expert from Canada. We will see his speech on video again, and he will be talking to us about arts, education, and wellness. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Schaefer, and I'm director of the World Culture Project based in Markham, Canada. We're standing here today in front of a monument of John Muir. He might be known to many of you. John Muir was the founder of the national parks movement in the United States, Yellowstone National Parks and many others. But interestingly, he came to this part of Ontario, which is Collingwood, which is very quickly becoming a major center for gastronomy, arts, and tourism, and explored this area from a natural setting, starting with Niagara Falls and coming up through the Niagara escarpment before he went to the United States. My concern really is the role the arts and culture could play in the world of the future. And most of the work that I've been doing over the course of my life is intended to show that the arts can play a much more important role in our lives going forward into the future than they have in the past. And when I talk about the arts in that sense, I don't just only mean the performing, exhibiting, and creative arts. I mean the culinary or gastronomic arts, the material arts or the crafts, the architectural arts, the photographic arts, the cinematographic arts, and so on. All of these areas, as we're now finding out with COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matters movement and other problems that exist in the world, are depending very heavily on the arts and artists to play a much more important role, not only in terms of helping them deal with periods of isolation and physical distancing through digital developments, but also with some very difficult health problems that people are now experiencing. So the arts can play a much greater role in the future than they can in the past. But it doesn't really end there. The arts are also a gateway to learning more about culture and cultures and how it might be possible in the future to enter a cultural age. And they do this because in many ways they're very symbolic of many of the activities that go on in all the diverse and various cultures in the world. And we're learning increasingly that role is more and more important in coming to grips with world problems like climate change, global warming, and the environmental crisis, creating more equitable distributions of income, coming to grips with hostilities and conflicts that are opening up between different genders, races, ethnic groups, cultures, countries, civilizations. So the arts are the key, really, to understanding how we can tackle and come to grips with all those problems more effectively in the future. And of course, the starting point for that kind of development is in childhood and youth, that how important it is for children and young people to get a very solid exposure in all the various art forms that exist in the world, and then build on that throughout their lives, not only to enjoy the arts as audience members or spectators, but also as participants, that they can learn over the course of their lives to perhaps play musical instruments or paint pictures, all the things like that that are so important in finding the ways in which the arts enrich our lives and make our lives more full and complete than they would otherwise be. I have a book coming out now in the next few weeks that is related to these matters. The title of the book is The Arts, Gateway to a Fulfilling Life and a Cultural Age. And it is devoted to the artists and arts organizations in the world for all the beauty, happiness, joy, creativity, and spirituality they have brought into the world in the past, are bringing into the world in the present, and can bring into the world in the future if we increase our understanding and the importance of assigning a much higher priority to those areas. Thank you very much for watching this video.
Thank you very much for joining us all the way from Canada. And next we have pleasure to actually have someone here in Kuopio also live on stage. And I have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Jyri Vuorisalo from the Savonia University of Applied Sciences. He will be speaking to us about human security and sustainable food production. We just have a technical few seconds here to install the microphone, and then we are all set to go.
Short information package. What is human security and why it's so important to us here in Savonia? Niin on varmaan tämä ääni kuuluu? Hyvä. Okay. Yes, my name is Jyri Vuorisalo, working in Savonia University of Applied Sciences, and human security is my main focus. I started this work 10 years ago. I coordinated Human Security Finland network in Finland, and now we are building Human Security Europe network. There is about 8 countries nowadays in this network. Okay. What is human security? 1994 United Nations Development Program started facilitate and coordinated new kind of thinking. What is important in international peace and security? This human security approach turn our faces to people and communities. And before that, we think only institutions and so on. So these kind of things are so important, our peace and security in the world. But 1994, United Nations started this work where people and communities are most important areas. And how this work do is, it calls for people-centered, comprehensive, context-specific and preventance-oriented responses for this work. And that's why that's so important framework if we like to develop peace and security for the people and with the people. And every member countries accepted this new approach 1994. And this approach gives us 4 main topics: how we can work from coordination to integration, how we promoting multi-stakeholder partnerships, including public-private partnerships, and this public-private partnership is growing nowadays in the world. And localization and leaving no one behind. Maybe this is most important in ideological point of view. And prevention and resilience. And this pandemic age teaches us how important is build prevention and resilience for the societies nowadays. And EU started in this year very big, about 2 billion euros program for this prevention in Europe. How we build more and more resilient society. And 2015, United Nations gave us new kind of program, Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. And these 17 sub-programs give us new kind of working environment for international peace and security. And that changed basic human security ideology for how human security meets sustainable development goals. And there is 2 big themes: protection and empowerment, empowering people and communities, and how build protection for people and communities. And there is inside these 4 important point of views: people-centered, preventive-oriented, context-specific and comprehensive. And what this means for food security food systems. Of course, there is 17 sub-programs, and programs 1 and 2 related direct to food security and food system development. And this gives us a lot of tools how to work, how we develop food security and food system nowadays. And then, about 2 years ago, new change, climate change risk. United Nations and EU told climate change is most important risk for international peace and security. And the human security now building resilience to climate threats. And food systems and food security is coming more and more important role in this work. And maybe the most important forum for this work is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. And IPCC wrote 1 year ago that agriculture and the food system are key to global climate change responses. And that is very big change in this work. IPCC got 2007 Nobel Peace Prize. And why it's so important framework for us here in Savonia University of Applied Sciences. Our new strategy based these sustainable development goals. And inside of this, our point of view for these sustainable development goals and how we implemented these sub-programs is how we can use human security point of view for this kind of work in education and in research, development and innovation work. And of course in business. It's very interesting that we have our own point of view for this work with sustainable development goals. And here is one example how we work with this human security and with sustainable development goals. This is an example from last winter in February in Geneva. We organized with United Nations Climate Security and Extreme Weather Events Workshop. And that is how we build our network in the world and especially in Europe. That kind of work gives us so many new partners and we can organize new kind of partnerships. And 4 years ago, European Union awarded this our work with EPA category winner award in European Enterprise Promotional Award. That was short what is human security and what is its role in here in Savonia. Thank you.
So now that we have you here, do we have any questions to Juri?
That's so easy.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very interesting and important approach also to the topic that we have today in the seminar. And before our final speaker, I just want to remind you all that the seminar in its entirety will be on YouTube tomorrow. So if you missed something or you want to review some speeches or some pieces of it, so you should have received already the link to today's live seminar, so it will be available on YouTube at the same link. The address will be the same.
Diane is not online yet.
Okay. So then I believe we might have a little break here. Our final speaker is not online yet, but let's see if we reach her soon. So we should be hearing from Diane Dott, the president of the ICAT organization. And so just, we have a minute of break.
I can't see you now, so but that's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my privilege in the past to visit your beautiful region of Kuopio, to enjoy the beautiful landscapes and taste the healthy gastronomy and meet many amazing entrepreneurs, civil servants, elected officials, and researchers, all working very hard for a better food future in Kuopio. It is my honor now to join you on behalf of nearly 100 individual ICAT experts and many diverse institutions dispersed across the globe, and of course, our amazing European Region of Gastronomy platform, which is the flagship initiative of ICAT, aimed to empower regions by celebrating our cultural and food diversity. In this context, yesterday, representatives from 4 awarded regions, Catalonia, that was awarded in 2016, Slovenia, awarded 2021, Menorca, awarded 2022, as well as Kuopio, met to share ideas and best practices in the spirit of our platform, a spirit of generosity. The subject of our webinar yesterday focused on wellness, well-being, and gastronomy in relation to tourism. In particular, we looked at how regions can support entrepreneurs, build exciting educational and 5-star food and gastronomy experiences. I want to share with you now some conclusions from that seminar. The first was that great experiences needed added value, and therefore combinations, for example, a sauna boat ride and a meal in a forest in Kuopio is a very good example, or starlight and gastronomy experiences in Menorca, or the opportunity to see life on a traditional farm and eat the great gastronomy as an experience in Slovenia. This led to a second conclusion. This combination of nature, culture, creativity, and good food needs to appeal to all the senses. That means that the ambience is important, what we see and what we hear, as well as what we taste and what we smell. And the third conclusion was that storytelling, and therefore the role of the storyteller, is crucial. Theatrical skills and language skills certainly need more attention. Finally, and perhaps more importantly, we concluded that the regions of gastronomy share common values, and those values relate to sustainability and responsible tourism. So this is an area where we can join together. And so our conversation led to talk about external promotion, how we could build an external promotion or cross-marketing for our regions that would capitalize on our very strong values. It is very clear that people who visit Kuopio do so for its beautiful nature, its gastronomy, and its wellness experiences. And that same customer segment could support other regions and would maybe like to visit other regions that give a similar emphasis on responsible tourism. The opportunities for cross-marketing are obviously there, and we need to explore them further. So I was delighted when, as a conclusion to our platform, we decided to take this conversation further and put it on the agenda of our next European Region of Gastronomy platform meeting. This is great, and it's all thanks to Kuopio that this could lead to a significant legacy for the platform. And on this note, we need to thank Kuopio further for many reasons. Yesterday, thanks to the team in Kuopio, we were able to, despite the very challenging circumstances, celebrate our very first European Food Gift Challenge competition. This initiative is aimed to support local producers, craftsmen and women in developing awareness about the need for interpretation and storytelling, and also in educating our customer base to value craft over products that are mass-produced. Thank you to the international jury and the local jury for the long hours of debate and discussion that led to the selection of the winning products. We'll find out who won this evening. Thank you also to our speakers today. Mari Neva, who demonstrated to us that we all have a role and responsibility to change our eating habits. Laszlo Putklo from Hungary, who reminded us that wellness travel is very closely connected to gastronomy and responsible tourism. To Marjukka Kolamainen, that food and happiness go hand in hand. And I love the concept of emotional tracking to help in our quest to build awareness about our individual responsibility on a whole host of issues, from packaging to food change, animal welfare, and many others. To Paul Schaffer from Canada, who reminded us that culture and creativity needs to be an integral part of moving forward, and his call for us to move from an economical age into a cultural age for the sake of us and our beautiful planet's well-being. It really resonates with me. And to Yuri Warasalo, that reminded us that this is not a soft subject that we are discussing. It's actually about the very essence of whether we, as a human race, will survive on this planet. These conversations deserve far more time and attention than we have today. But we hope by sharing our knowledge across our borders, we have provoked some thoughts, inspired some people, and hopefully moved some of you to make positive changes for the future, either individually or within your institutions. And this has all been possible because of the amazing team at ICAT that I have behind me, Fabrizio Toccoli and Raul Torres. And most certainly, none of this would have been possible without the fantastic teams from Savonia University and ProAgria. I would particularly like to give a heartfelt thanks to Ilona, to Antti, to Henna, to Jonna, to Taina and Nina, and many others that are there making sure that this event was possible. We are truly indebted to your deep dedication and generosity. You have ensured that the sharing of knowledge was possible. Your friends and colleagues across the globe, thank you sincerely, and we will be with you for your opening ceremony this evening. We wish you luck for that. We're very sorry not to be there with you, but we will be there with you in spirit. A huge kiitos from ICAT. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diane.
Thank you so much, Diane.
Thank you.
Thank you for this. It's an exciting day for Kuopio, for sure, because of our opening ceremony. Seminar. Any final questions or comments from anyone? Anybody? So I believe this is farewell then. Thank you everyone joining us here in Kuopio and also online. It was and we hope to see many of you either online or in Kuopio, Kuopio Sauna today evening for the European Region of Gastronomy Kuopio region opening ceremony. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Bye.